Mr. Speaker, this is a report of Education, Culture and Sports Committee on the Mandera County Education Bursary Fund Regulation 2019. Honorable Speaker, the Mandera County Education Bursary Fund Regulation 2019 was tabled in this House on 13th of November 2019, pursuant to the provision of Mandera County Standing Order 1935 and referred to the Committee on Education, Culture and Sport. The term of reference in regards to any statutory instrument are set out under Statutory Instrument Act 2013 and the Standing Order 1935 of Mandera County Assembly Standing Orders. The committee held a total of 5 sittings, 2 of which the committee had engagement on with the CCM for Education in December 2019 at the County Assembly Committee Room 1 and in Nairobi to scrutinize the regulation as provided for in Section 17 of the Statutory Instrument Act of 2013, where the CCM input was considered, and the document is a product of consultative meeting between the committee and the Department of Early Childhood Education. The Department of Education. Committee mandate. Mr. Speaker, the Education, Culture and Sport Committee is one of the sectoral committees established under the Standing Order number 1935, and the function is to investigate, inquire into and report all matters relating to mandate, management activities, administration, operation, and estimate of the assigned departments. B, study the program and policy objective of the department and the effectiveness of the implementation. C, study and review all county legislation referred to it. And D, study, assess, and analyze the relative success of the department as measured by the result obtained as compared with their stated objective. Mr. Speaker, sir, committee members is as stated here. Of course, Honorable Yakub is the chair, plus 8 other honorable members. As stated, because I believe everybody has a copy. Honorable Speaker, sir, on acknowledgement, may I take this opportunity to thank all members of this committee for their input and valuable contribution during the deliberation on the report. The committee also takes this opportunity to thank the Office of the Speaker and the Clerk for the support accorded to it during the report writing. On behalf of Education, Culture and Sports Committee members and pursuant to Section 15 of the Statutory Instrument Act 2013 and the Mandera County Assembly Standing Order 1935G, it is my pleasure and duty to present to the County Assembly reports on the Mandera County Education Fund Regulation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we, the members of the Education, Culture and Sports Committee, unanimously adopt the report on the Mandera County Education Bursary Fund Regulation 2019 and appended our signature. As you see, everybody has appended their signatures apart from 2 honorable members who had a permission. On overview of the regulation, Part 1 deals with the preliminary, which deals with the citations and the interpretations. B, Part 2 provide for bursary application and disbursements. And when I say bursary application, even the format for application is attached here, annexed here. Part 3 provides for administration of the funds, which is actually the basis which formed for amendment and why we came up with these regulations. And Part 4 provide for bank account. Part 5 provide for government social responsibility project, which is normally handled by the executive up there. And Part 6 provides for monitoring and evaluation. And Part 7 provide for guidelines. Honorable members and Honorable Speaker, the object and purpose of this regulation is to complement the Mandera County Education Bursary Act 2014 and clarifying procedures that are not explicitly dealt with Act 2014 and the subsequent amendment to the Principal Act, conformity to the Statutory Instrument Act of 2013. Honorable Speaker, the Statutory Instrument Act 2013 provides for several procedural and substantive issues that are a requirement of any statutory requirements in instruments. As a matter of procedure, the instrument must first be published and serialized pursuant to Section 22 of the Statutory Instrument Act. It should then be forwarded to the county assembly, within 7 days after publication pursuant to Section 11.1 of the Act. Under Section 11.12, the instrument is supposed to be forwarded with an explanatory memoranda attached to it as set out on the schedule. The explanatory memoranda should contain regulatory impact statement. The regulatory making authority is also supposed to subject the instrument to consultation with the person likely to be affected by the instrument. The committee found out that the regulation was published, but an explanatory memoranda was not provided for. However, the Enabling Act, which is the Public Finance Management Act, provides for the reason of the establishment of this fund. In addition, Section 9 provides for exceptional circumstances where regulatory impact statement will be unnecessary. Thus, the committee found the requirement unnecessary for this particular regulation. Honorable Speaker, the statutory instrument facilitates the scrutiny of parliamentary statutory instrument and the manner in which such instruments are dealt with. Under Section 13, the committee is required, while carrying out its scrutiny of any statutory instrument, be guided by the principle of good governance, rule of law, and shall in particular consider whether the statutory instrument A is in accordance with the provision of the Constitution, the Act pursuant to which it is made, or other written laws. If B infringes on fundamental right and freedom of the public. C contain a matter which, in the opinion of the committee, should more properly be dealt with in Act of Parliament. And D contain imposition of taxation. E directly or indirectly bars the jurisdiction of the courts. F gives retrospective effect to any of the provision in respect of which the Constitution or the Act does not expressively give any such power. And G involves expenditure from the consolidated fund or other public revenues. H is defective in its drafting or for any reason the form or purport of the statutory instrument calls for any elucidations. I appears to make some unusual or unexpected use of the powers conferred by the Constitution of the Act pursuant to which it is made. J appears to have had unjustifiable delay in its publication or laying before Parliament. K makes slight liberties or obligation unduly dependent upon non-reviewable decisions. I makes right liberties or obligation unduly dependent insufficiently defined administrative powers. M inappropriately delegate legislative powers. N imposes a fine, imprisonment, or other penalty without express authority having been provided for in the enabling legislations. And O appears for any reason to infringe on the rule of law. And P inadequately subject the exercise of legislative power to parliamentary scrutiny. And G or Q for this matter occurs to any other reason that the committee considered fit to examine. Honorable Speaker, in sustaining the compliance of the regulation with the Statutory Instrument Act 2013, the committee found out that the regulation is A, in accordance with the provision of the Constitution, the Public Finance Management Act 2012, the Mandera County Education Bursary Act 2014, as well as other relevant laws. B, does not inappropriately delegate legislative powers. C, does not impose a fine, imprisonment, or other penalty without express authority having been provided for in the enabling legislation. D, does not appear for any reason to infringe on the rule of law. Does not infringe subject to the exercise of legislative power to the county assembly scrutiny, and does not for any reason in its content or forms provide a ground for for disapproval. The regulation is in compliance with requirement of the Statutory Instrument Act 2013, Section 13. Honorable Speaker, finally, in accordance with Section 16 and 17 of the Statutory Instrument Act 2013, which provides for the procedures of tabling the report in the House, and in recommendation thereof, the committee finds that this regulation has met the threshold and is appropriate that as it seeks to regulate fund already approved by this county assembly pursuant to the provision of Public Finance Management Act 2012 and the Mandera County Education Bursary Act 2014. Thus, the committee upon deliberation approved the regulation and hereby present this report on the regulation to this August County Assembly for approval. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, the committee recommendations recommends that that this county approved, it is not I, it is one, that the county assembly approves the Mandera County Education Bursary Fund Regulation 2019. Two, that the relevant authorities, including the county assembly budget and the appropriation committee, allocate more fund to the bursary kitty. And the last one, number three, that the executive should publish this regulation in the Kenyan Gazette and County Gazette pursuant to Section 23 of the County Government Act. Mr. Speaker, sir, that's all about this regulation, and all the annexes are attached, including the minutes for the committee sittings, the correspondence. This is from the departments, Mr. Speaker, sir, and the regulation itself is annexed, Mr. Speaker, sir, including the application form. Mr. Speaker, sir, with that, before I ask honorable members, one of our honorable members to second me, Mr. Speaker, that this regulation either be rejected wholly or approved wholly, that there will be no amendment, and that's just for the purpose of information. With this, I tell my honorable Alinur, member representing Dandu, to second me. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Honorable Inur, member representing Greater Dandu. Mr. Speaker, I think the issue of bursary is long overdue. As we are all aware, Mr. Speaker, as we are all aware, that the allocation fund is here at the Mandera County Bursary account. Now that the concerned department for education are taking an excuse and blaming the MCS, Mandera County Assembly, for failing to approve this regulation. Mr. Speaker, as we all aware that the school has also been closed by coronavirus, and now that our children are at home. Our children now are at home. By the time we approve this regulation, as education committee, still we shall make follow-up and assure that the concerned department will go into advertise in the local medias by today, starting from today afternoon, in the local medias, and distribute the forms for bursary so that our children who are even in Nairobi, for those who are in Dandu, will going to apply this bursary. And within the course of this month, we shall assure that we shall going to distribute this bursary, Mr. Speaker. With that, I stand to second my chair for education, Yakub, the member for Derkale.
I propose the question that this House adopts the report of Education, Sports, Culture Committee on Mandera County Bursary Fund Regulation 2019. Honorable Kula.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Honorable Kula Aliu, the Honorable Member elected from Ramu. The regulation is before the County Assembly. And as the Honorable Member for Tetkade, the Chairman for Education, has alluded, we can do nothing about the regulation. But since we have never had the time to peruse through the same document before, and it is finding on the floor of the House, then we have to have some concerns raised, Mr. Speaker. One, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Chair said that on 13th November 2019 is when the document was on the floor of this House. And according to the Standing Order 58, Mr. Speaker, once a motion is actually tabled, seconded, and proposed, it becomes it's only with the leave of the House that the document can be removed. By then, the Honorable Chair said it was a wrong document before the House, and the way it was removed, the document was removed from the floor of the House. It was not with the leave of the House, Mr. Speaker. There was no motion that was moved. And I still believe the wrong document is before the Honorable House. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, coming back to the same document, one, the Chair for Education has not signed, although the quorum number is there. I don't know whether it was actually by design or by default, I don't know. The Chair has not actually signed the same document. Mr. Speaker, having said that, I want to take you through, if you have the document, through certain sections of this regulation, Mr. Speaker. And I want first to take you to Section 5, award of bursary, 5D. This is award of bursaries. In each financial year, the executive member shall issue guidelines stipulating the minimum amount that may be awarded to an applicant irrespective of the type or level of school the applicant is attending. Day school is a free school, according to my understanding. It's a government-sponsored. There is no money that should be allocated to a day school, as per what I know. Otherwise, the committee can be able to maybe give us otherwise. Number EF, again, special secondary school and special primary school. This particular definition has not been given in the regulation. I tried to look for it, what a special primary school is and what a special secondary school is, and I have not found this in the regulation in terms of definition. So we need some of these things to be clear so that when you talk of a special school, I can say in my ward, do I have a special school? Do I have a special secondary school? That definition is not there, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to take you to Section 17, Section 7. Section 7. Section 7, Mr. Speaker, I want to take you to 4.6, where it talks of the designated ward administrators shall maintain the record of the identification process, and the beneficiaries identified shall fill application forms set out under Mandera County Bursary Act, which shall be forwarded to or kept as the case may be by the respective ward administrators. As the situation stands now, there are some wards who do not have ward administrators. So in case the ward administrator is not there, the regulation does not provide for an alternative. If it is a sub-county administrator, if it is the committee members who are supposed to have those documents and keep it, we are not much involved, because anybody can challenge this regulation and it has to be provided. If it's a ward administrator, some wards do not have ward administrators. So in that case, what will happen? The regulation is again silent on that. Mr. Speaker, I believe Section 7, number 7 is misplaced. It is misplaced in this sense, Mr. Speaker. Now go to number 9. Look at number 7. The duly filled serialized application forms together with the summary of shall then be forwarded to the board secretary by the respective ward administrators. It means the bursary has been awarded. Now the committee have decided, made a decision as per this section, and now it is the ward administrator to now forward it to the county board secretary. That's what it means. And then if you come to number 9, it says, upon receiving the application forms, the chairperson of the ward bursary committee again shall immediately convene a meeting to vet and award bursaries again. Now these forms have been already forwarded, which is this committee that we are coming back to again, who are supposed to do the vetting. Then it goes to number 9, 10, 11, 12, up to 13, Mr. Speaker. And then go to number 8 again. Number 8 again, the universities and college bursary award. I'm assuming the bursaries have already been allocated, the committees have sat, they have looked at the universities, they have looked at all those criteria, and now we are coming to, and the documents have already been forwarded to the board secretary, and now we are coming to number 8 again. A person shall qualify for award of bursaries for universities and colleges of education, the person meets the condition stipulated. A person applying for bursary under this regulation shall submit this application to the ward committee again. You know, there is a bit of mixed up, Mr. Speaker. And then I will take you to the application form, Mr. Speaker. Look at the application form again, Mr. Speaker. I am not against this regulation. I'm only highlighting some key things because the Honorable Chair for Education is normally a very thorough chairman who normally scrutinizes his documents. But for this one around, I think the issue of Turkey trip has actually confused him a bit. And I think that is what actually misled him. If you look at the form to be completed by the principal, look at part C, part D, the form itself. Now part D, it says student grade. What is the purpose of attaching a student's grade? The grade. The report form, yes, but the grade. Do you need, if the students have a grade E, does it mean he doesn't qualify to get a bursary? So the issue of the student's grade, I have a problem with it. And then look at number E, recommendation by the ward bursary committee. Where does it come? I think this one should have come last. And then look at part again F, declaration. I am assuming I am the one who is applying for the bursary. Declare that the information I have given here is true to the best of my knowledge, information, and belief. I append my signatures. But already the committee has already recommended what I'm supposed to, whether I qualify for the bursary or not. Which one comes faster than the other one? I think the other one comes first, the recommendations comes later. And then it should follow again the official use, Mr. Speaker, that should have come. Those are my concerns. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, the bursary issues is a long overdue issue, and we need it right now, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. I'm not opposed. I'll just give you my concern.
Yes, Chairman. Let me give the Chairman, and then he make comment. I will give it to you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance. Mr. Speaker, what the Honorable Member Representative Ramo is saying is true. It is his opinion. But, Mr. Speaker, that some of these wordings and sentences are very technical. It needs somebody to read, take time, and understand, Mr. Speaker, sir. As he said, Mr. Speaker, sir, he has not read the document itself, and he has seen it just in the floor of the House, Mr. Speaker. So I just advise him to read, understand, and we go ahead. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, on the day school, he has said, Mr. Speaker, sir, the day school can either be a public school or a private institutions. So there are private institutions who are very expensive, and we pay we can pay the bursary. Alternatively, the public school still pays 3,000 shillings. There are parents who can't pay the 3,000 shillings, Mr. Speaker, sir. So that is why we have put the 3,000 day school there. Mr. Speaker, sir, on this issue of special groups, Mr. Speaker, sir, actually, that is why when you see there is disability here, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is well defined in the education sector that there are deaf schools and there are blind schools, Mr. Speaker, sir, and those the special schools that needs to benefit from the bursary, Mr. Speaker, sir. On ward admin, Mr. Speaker, sir, in the absence of ward administrator in a specific ward, there is always an acting ward administrator, Mr. Speaker, sir. The government office always is an alternative. If the ward administrator is not there, then the acting ward administrator from the immediate ward can be posted there to take care of it. Mr. Speaker, sir, on awarding the bursary, it is very clear. The ward administrator collect the bursary applications, and then the committees award the bursaries, Mr. Speaker, sir. There is nothing like mix-up or the committees collecting the forms. It is the ward administrator who collect the application forms, bring it to the chairman's call for a meeting, and then the awarding is done. Mr. Speaker, sir, on the issue of why we put or why the department put the student grade there, Mr. Speaker, sir, I think we need to do a very fast thinking, Mr. Speaker, sir. Why the grade is put there is to reward those who perform, Mr. Speaker, sir, very well. And it is very simple, Mr. Speaker, sir. Those who bring D minuses from Form 4 to E to Form 4, there's no need of rewarding them. Once you put the grade there and you say that we're going to reward those who are going to perform well, then, Mr. Speaker, sir, that will become a basis for others to improve on their studies. With that, I stand to say thank you, Honorable Member, for contributing to the meeting. Thank you.
Honorable, okay, Honorable Alur.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to congratulate the Education Board Committee, the Education Committee. In terms of, the deliverance of this document, there are issues related to observing the ethics code of presenting a document. Mr. Speaker, if you look at this document, on page 3, the acknowledgement of the report is signed for the chairperson, education, culture, and yet the person who signed the document name is not appended. Though he has signed it for the chairperson education, somebody else has signed this document, but the person who signed did not put his name. The signature is there. Then, when it comes to presenting the document, I know the chairperson, who is the spokesperson of the committee, is supposed to read. I don't know whether he has gone through this document, but it has so happened that he was not present when issues were deliberated and discussed, but he is the same person now presenting the same document on behalf of the committee.
Information on that, Mr.
Yeah.
Speaker.
Yes, Mr. Alur.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think my namesake, member for Wargadud, is doubting the credibility of the senior member,
What
Vice Chair.
information are you giving?
Mr. Speaker, it is true that when the chair is away to Banisa, I chair the committee as a vice chair.
Yes, the minute.
Minute is attached
Yes,
that the vice chair has chaired the committee. And I'm really wondering, Mr. Speaker, why he's doubting my credibility as a vice chair when the minute is even attached.
Thank you for the information. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I may proceed, this is about the regulations regarding forwarding of a report. If it is so, I don't know, but his name was supposed to appear here, the way to my knowledge,
Where?
on the signature.
No, he's signing for the chairman. He's signing for, and the name of the chairman is there.
Supposed to appear.
Just proceed. Yes,
Okay,
that's
thank
in
you.
order.
Then, Mr. Speaker, regarding the report, in terms of the regulation itself, the regulation is supposed to facilitate the easy implementation of the act. But in terms of now, there are a lot of puzzles in terms of regarding the chronological aspect of presenting this report, which is necessary to simplify further so that at least any ordinary citizen can at least read, or any ordinary civil servant can at least look at it and ensure that he doesn't have difficulty implementing the same. So I think the issues raised by Honorable, my fellow comrade Baba, Mr. Honorable Kula, needs to be effected to ensure at least the ease of implementation of this regulation. With that,
Thank you. Thank you. Honorable Sokore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mine is just on the grading, indicating where the chair said that they will indicate the grade so that it shows them that they are rewarding the ones who are doing well, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, according to the statistics that we have in Mandera County, majority of our children are scoring D's. And that one doesn't guarantee them, Mr. Speaker, to be denied the right that they are supposed to get, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I urge the chair to look at that point and remove the grading. Thank you.
Honorable India.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to support the report of education. And I congratulate the Education Committee for the wonderful work, because this thing has been long overdue, and it is here now, and the bursary is long overdue, because we were supposed to, the children are supposed to get bursary by December. And now we are heading to, is it April? I'm not sure. But the regulations which are put here are strict measures which will help maybe the bursary board to do their work. But I am worried, Mr. Speaker, when next time the bursary fund will be released, what will executive bring another hurdle or another reason for delays of the bursary for the children? The other thing is about the issue of grading. I support it. Why? If somebody has D+ in their class and he is the first one, he should be rewarded. And you leave the one of E who has who and who in the county. Thank you.
I really don't dwell so much on the grade, because there's no where it is written that it's only this grade that benefit. It's only the information there is you attach the report form. So the decision of who is to get bursary, I think, is with the committee. So we don't need to dwell so much on the grade, whether you oppose, because there's nothing to oppose or support there. It's just attach. It's a very straight. Honorable Wario.
Speaker, I rise to support the bursary report presented by the able chairman for education. So, Speaker, I just want to read quite a number of bursary application and disbursement procedures. So, Speaker, when I go through the process of awarding this bursary, I think nothing has been left behind to be fair enough to this population. And as some members are saying, it is long overdue. And as all of us understand, we either reject it in totality or accept it in totality. So the issue of raising quite a number of points that might not fit our mind, I don't think it will going to hold any water. So Speaker, when I read at number 4, part 2 of bursary application and disbursement. So Speaker, part 4 says, Ward Committee shall consider and verify the following information while reviewing application under Regulation 3.
Honorable Wari, you know your pocket in your hand, and you're on the floor and your hands are in your pockets. So
So Speaker,
just be
I have
orderly.
noted. Thank you for your direction. So Speaker, if the Ward Committee shall consider and verify the following information while reviewing the application under Regulation 3, whether the applicant reside in the respective ward. Speaker, I know we are very much concerned on the issue of Ward Committee. And Mr. Speaker, if the information that the Ward Committee shall have should first, number A, to take care that the applicant reside in the wards. I think this is a good point. We need to congratulate the committee. B, it says whether the information provided and supportive documentation is correct and complete. This is to check whether the applicant is lying. So Speaker, C, whether the applicant meets the conditions set out in Act of this regulation. I think we have read it and we know. So Speaker, award of bursary. Each financial year, executive member shall issue guidelines stipulating the minimum amount that may be awarded to an applicant in respect to the type or level of school the applicant is attending, classified as. I think before this regulation, day schools were not considered. And some of the wards have secondary school, but only day school. And it is now.
But we look at the government policy. Government day school, they are not supposed to pay. That's fact. Yeah, it's fact. So yeah, I'm sure I know there are some levies they do for lunch. It is illegal, but the fact is, government day school they are not supposed to pay. So let's not dwell much on that. We'll improve on this document. It's the beginning.
Speaker, okay. So Speaker, when I stand to support, I believe I know what I am facing from my ward and the kind of challenge I have to this bursary. So Speaker, if I see the number of schools and maybe national school, county school, sub-county school, special secondary school, day school, special program, primary, university, colleges, I think before even this thing is not properly defined. So Speaker, when I read the eligibility criteria, it's perfect. On the part of number 7, so Speaker, why again I like supporting this document without any diverging opinion on it. Identification of beneficiary by ward committee members and ward administrators. So Speaker, the identification of beneficiary under Act shall take into account the number of candidates in the Kenya Certificate Primary of Education and Kenya Certificate of Primary Secondary Education candidate of the previous year. So Speaker, it is like, you know, the record is with the ministry. The records of number of primary school who did KCPE last year from Shimpir ward is with the ministry. Unlike the one of Takaba town who have also finished. So Speaker, but the thing is, if the record is put and they will going to disburse this bursary, I think this is now at the place of allocation per wards. This criteria will only imply how many amount will some ward will get. This is the criteria of allocating for the wards, but not for the beneficiary. And the thing is, if that is considered, some of the wards that doesn't have secondary school and is getting bursary equally like a place like Mandera town or Takaba town will go by what they have, which is really fair to the more populated area. Let us not refuse the fact So Speaker, with all those few remarks, I support and let us not actually, because of what is happening in the globe, and because everyone is fear, the issue of social distancing, the issue of stay home, stay safe, policies that is being circulated globally. I think let us not stop this population from not getting the bursary because of some few things that we can amend, even within this year. I therefore support and advise my brother who tried to highlight some signature aspect like Honorable Kula, just to oversee. Thank you.
Order, Honorable Abbas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand to support. Mr. Speaker, for the last 6 months, the executive were blaming this House for not passing acts, regulations, and blah, blah, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, to my understanding, and Mr. Speaker, to my understanding, and I think you really put it well, that day school for public schools, according to the regulation, according to the government regulation, they are not allowed to be given bursary. But Mr. Speaker, we have private day schools, like the Mandera, we have Border Point that performs well than public schools, Mr. Speaker. So there are many brilliant and bright students who are in those private schools, Mr. Speaker, and I think that part captures the day school for private schools, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the special school, Mr. Speaker, Mandera County, we have almost 3 to 2 special schools, and I think it covers the special schools. When it says special schools, Mr. Speaker, it doesn't mean special in culture, special in behavior, but special in terms of inability, which is the disability schools, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think regulations, if this regulation has some shortcomings, Mr. Speaker, it can be reintroduced through amendment, and Mr. Speaker, so this House will not shift till 2022, but Mr. Speaker, our students are suffering. Mr. Speaker, a case example, there are 2 bright students who performed well in KCSE. They got B plain and B plus. They're in university. I'm always disturbed, Mr. Speaker, when I get the SMS on how they have not met the school fees. Mr. Speaker, the fastest we pass this regulation and the disbursement is done, the better for this county, Mr. Speaker. And I believe my honorable members to pass this regulation fastest so that the disbursement is done. Thank you.
Honorable Rafat.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I support the committee's recommendations, but I have some reservations, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, on the issue of Kalalio ward, the bursary disbursement they get normally is very low, especially on population where they get only 500,000. Mr. Speaker, sir, some students are in universities. The applicants only of secondary are 600 candidates apply for that, while you have got 500,000. They cannot even get 500 shillings as fees. This issue has disturbed me so much, and I request the committee, when they're asking for that bursary of disbursement, Kalale ward is considered at least so that they can get even 1 million. Because when they get 500,000, you can only give to maybe 40 students or 50 students, nothing more. And then that's why sometimes I even went to certain wards. Deputy minority leader can say that, the minority leader. I have even taken some forms to his, the other bursary, to his ward. I've taken to Murodile requesting this student to be considered. And I still request all those wards. When I come with them with a form of a student in a university or college, they support me. I stand to support. Thank you.
Honorable Shaban.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the reports by Committee on Education, but I have 2 reservations that the committee should look into during disbursing of this fund. Day schools, yes, it is according to the government directives, should be free and the students are not supposed to pay. But because of this 100% transition, these day schools need to improve the infrastructure. We need to complement the effort of the CDF. So I think the school days program should not be left out, at least if it however little it is. We should allocate some funds to this day school. The other reservation is the last disbursement we did. There was a ceiling which was put from the treasury, and most of the students were disadvantaged. They allocated huge amount of money to secondary schools. And in secondary schools these days, even the CDF, there is a allocation they give to secondary schools. So the major beneficiaries in the last disbursement was secondary schools. The tertiary and universities were disadvantaged. So this time, they should not put any ceiling. If it is 3 million for a certain ward, it should be left with the committee and ward administrator to distribute it according to the need. Thank you very much.
Honorable Adam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of the report. The points that relates to the grades. Mr. Speaker, because of the 100% transition, this should be completely deleted because we were made to understand that the policy of the government says, regardless of what a child, scores, this child should go to secondary school. And therefore, it is needless, Mr. Speaker, to have a grade in the first place. The other one, Mr. Speaker, if I give an example in support of day school, as you rightly put, there is no policy that is guiding payment of school fees to these schools, Mr. Speaker. This is a place where poor families, most vulnerable families in our population, take their children, Mr. Speaker. In my ward, there is a child who had, only his mother, alive, very poor, close neighbor of mine. This child got 350 points, Mr. Speaker, in KCPE. He got Mandera Boys Secondary School. Mother said she cannot pay the school fees for the child in Mandera Secondary School. And I requested Buruburu Secondary School, which is equally a good secondary school, public school in the county, to admit the boy. The boy now is there. Certainly, Mr. Speaker, that mama will not be able to pay the 3,000 shillings for that child. And this child will end up dropping out of school if we shall either go out of our way to support this child out of our pocket, or from such a public bursaries. I therefore request your direction on this, that the payment of fees to public secondary schools be made because of many circumstances that face the students in those schools. Thank you so much.
I think we have debated enough. Before I give it to the chairman. Chairman, it's good you take the comments of the members. Yeah? Some of them are very valid. Of course, all of them. I don't mean there are some which are invalid, but it's good to when maybe after the 6 months they should think of making an amendment where they are necessary, like the recommendation and the declaration on the form. Is a basic that one should appear last, not before the recommendation, and many other comments. So maybe I give you 1 minute, and then we put the question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As debated by the honorable members, of course, this is a human document. There must be some kind of errors, Mr. Speaker, sir. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, most regulations always comes from the executive. Its origin is not the assembly, it is the executive. The correction we make is at the committee level only. We make corrections and return them. They make correction and then bring the final copy, Mr. Speaker. With this, most of the comments made are genuine, Mr. Speaker, sir. After a few months, bare minimum of 6 months, we look into the regulation and ask
the executive to make, to resubmit for corrections again, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I put a question that the House adopt the report of Education, Sport, Culture Committee on Mandera County Education Bursary Fund Regulation 2019. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many of contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it.